Today, Garden Invaders is on the beautiful island of Guernsey, creating a garden right by the sea and taking in this fantastic view. Welcome to Garden Invaders. We're on the island of Guernsey, which is famous for its flowers and fantastic climate. And we're here to help the gardening no-hopers. Come on, slow coach.
Yeah, all right. Now, we've got lots of materials, more than we need in fact. We've got some invaders, but of course we'll only have some plants if the garden owners can answer some of this lady's tricky gardening questions. I could stay here all day.
Race you. On your marks, get set, go. Today we're in the Cottel district of Guernsey to invade the garden of Ralph Browning and his partner Sandra Fox. Ralph is a Guernsey man through and through. He's retired now from his job as a PE and special needs teacher. Their garden is a famous local landmark, but for all the wrong reasons. The random design of rubbish, boulders and even an old boat is a bit of an eyesore, and Ralph is desperate for our help to get it looking shipshape. Well, Ralph, what a fantastic view, mate.
Aren't we lucky?
You're very lucky, because otherwise your eye would be drawn down to the, the maritime steptoes yard. What have you been doing?
The worst
I don't know why you're laughing.
Oh,
the worst you've ever seen.
It is pretty bad. I mean, you've got all sorts of toot there. Where'd you get it all from?
I'm a hoarder.
No, you don't say.
Do people pay to dump that stuff here?
Do you nag him, Sandra?
I do, yes, I try. But,
Obviously it doesn't work.
No.
There are other attractions that call him away.
Oh, what's that then? Is that the local hostelry just down the road?
It could well be.
So you've not been inspired by your neighbours and their nice, neat, tidy garden, have you?
I started, Charlie. I tried to make this horseshoe pattern with some local granite that I managed to half-stitch from...
I can't see any horse.
It must be under all those weeds somewhere.
I call it natural.
What do you call that pile of wood? Is that natural as well?
that was flotsam from the beach.
So what's the story with the flagpole? Is that a Guernsey flag?
That's a Guernsey flag now flying, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And is that staying? Do you want to keep that?
Oh, yes. Oh,
yeah, I had to ask.
Don't you dare.
What would you like to see from the garden?
We'd like to stay with the seaside theme, really. It's mainly sand, nothing much grows out there, and there's a lot of salty winds in the winter, so I think we have to have what will grow more than what we want.
Right, who's doing the questions and who's doing the work?
I'm doing the work.
I've got you, have I?
I've got to volunteer for this.
Thank goodness
I've
for
got
that.
a short stool, come on you.
Right, come on, Sandra, you're with me. So, although it is pretty bad, I have seen worse.
I can't imagine, man.
But obviously we've got quite a lot of clearance work to start with. Thanks a lot, Paul. So here's the plan then. And the focal point of the garden's going to be this old boat here. So we're going to take that and stand it on its end over there, and it's going to make a nice sheltered seat. So it's going to have its back to the sea, because you can't see the sea from the garden itself anyway. So we're going to introduce quite a lot of stone into the garden and hopefully reuse a lot of these things that are here already. And then we're going to put some timber in and recycle some of what's here. Right, now you're going to be an invader for the day. So, thanks Dave. If you could just put this t-shirt on and then we can get on with some clearance.
Ralph, you're a lucky boy. 20 yards from your front garden,
About that.
Do you come down here very often?
Almost every day, Charlie. That's why I've got so much flotsam in my front garden.
Oh, that's a posh word for junk. Now, we've got some great plants that are going to be really good in your garden because they're all going to be fine with a seaside situation, so they'll put up with the exposure and the salt water. So these are our architectural plants, all very spiky, so they're going to really show out in your garden. And then these are truly maritime shrubs, so they really will put up with the salt water, the exposure, and also the intense sun, because you get huge extremes, don't you? In the winter, I suppose it's very dark, and then in the summer it's like this.
Yeah.
And our third group, these are our perennials, so lots of colour there and sort of late summer colour as well. And then I don't know about you, if you think of seaside, I always think of grasses, and we've got some lovely grasses, low ones with colour, seed heads, and I love the way that in the breeze they move around, so that'll look quite nice in the garden.
Superb, yeah.
And then finishing touches over there, we've got that table and the armillary sphere, but that's not you, that's Sandra that's got to answer that question. So this first group of plants are all architectural, and when I mean architectural, they're the ones that, if you look at a garden, they stand out because they've got a very dramatic shape. So phormiums are growing because they've got these lovely strappy leaves that come in all sorts of colours. And phormiums can grow in quite damp soil, but they'll put up with sort of sea breezes and salty air as well. The astelia, which is the silver spear, which is that strappy, very, very shiny silver leaf, can grow in partial shade or full sun. And then we've got agave americana, got big sharp points on it, so do be careful. Over here it'll probably be quite hardy because although it's wet during the winter, your soil's very porous, isn't it? It's very sandy.
It is.
So it drains really quickly.
Yeah.
They're all going to be really good for your garden. So I think you've got to get this question right.
Oh, here goes.
What term describes the method of distributing seed or fertiliser evenly over the ground by hand? Is it reaping, harrowing, or broadcasting?
I think it's broadcasting.
I knew you were going to get this one right, so you win all the plants that you've got to do nothing to. I think as we're by the sea, I think we'll need an invader, and I think it will have to be Nelson. Nelson!
Now, Ralph's a bit of a local character and he's got a quirky nature, so I've decided to give him a quirky garden. So we've taken this old boat that he had lying in the garden, stuck it into the ground there, and that's going to become a seat. So we're going to build a seat in there. It's nice and protected from the winds blowing in off the sea. It's going to be a great place to sit. But this garden's got a bit of a recycling theme because Ralph has got a lot of wood lying around. So I think it's important to reuse it. So we're going to put this down here as a rustic deck that's going to go in front there, just carrying on that sort of seaside feel. And then throughout the garden, we're going to erect these timber groins that are going to run through here, and it's going to visually link the whole thing with the beach over there. We're also going to put down granite chippings here. It's going to keep the weeds down, so no lawn to mow regular or anything like that. And we're going to allow plants to self-seed into it. So things like all this alyssum that's around the edge, we're going to keep that, and that's all going to drift into the whole thing. We're also going to reuse all the stone and everything. So we're basically just going to plant lots of plants throughout this and let the whole thing knit together on its own.
Now, Ralph, tell me about your gardening. You've obviously had a bit of a crack at the garden. What's the problems that you've sort of had?
Well, we get bombarded by being right on the coast with the sand and the wind and the salt. So the big problems really were if I tried to grow any bushes, shrubs or even grass, the next spring it just won't come up again.
Apart from choosing plants that do well at the seaside, what you should also do, because your soil's very sandy, it drains really quickly, which means there's no moisture, but it also takes all the nutrient away. So you want to dig in lots of organic matter, which will give the plants a bit of a boost and it will make them establish properly. Now, we've got some really nice plants that are truly maritime plants, so they'll put up with all your conditions you've got there. They're evergreens, and this one is Pittosporum tubera. It looks quite boring, I know, but in the spring and early summer it has tiny cream flowers that are really sweetly scented. Then we've got Metrocydrus, which is known as the New Zealand Christmas tree plant, because at Christmas in New Zealand you'll see them up on the hillsides and they're totally covered in bright red flowers, a bit like a bottle brush but flat. And then a bit of colour, they're hebes. Now they are fantastic near the sea, and there's loads of different ones, from ground covering ones right to big shrubs or small trees. That one's blue gem. So I think we chose these shrubs with you in mind because there's nothing to do. To which family of plants does the aspidistra belong? Is it lily, orchid or cactus?
Cactus, it can't be a cactus. Cactus succulents with spikes. Orchid, I'm sure, coming from Guernsey, we've got a world famous orchid grower in Guernsey, so it can't be an orchid. I'm going for lily.
You sound very positive there.
I'm going for lily.
All right then, I can't change your mind.
Nope.
Okay, well done.
I haven't won.
Yes, you have.
God
You're doing very
damn
well.
it.
I think we need an invader.
Now, Ralph rescued this boat and it was in a bit of a sorry state, and to be honest, it still is. Look up there, it's pretty rotten. It was never going to be turned back into a boat, so I decided to put it to good use and turn it into a seat. But it makes a very good focal point from up on his balcony, so it's got a bit of foreground interest for the sea. And also, when you sit down on this seat that we've put here, you get a great view of the garden as well. So what have you actually done with this?
Well, it may look to the untrained eye like we've cut the boat off at the bottom, but we haven't. We've dug a nice big hole, filled it back up with sand. The boat's sunk about 2 foot in the ground. Because of the ground, it's nice sand, so it's been packed in. No cement needed.
So there's about a tonne of sand in there.
There's about a tonne of sand holding it in, and it is. I mean, to look at it, it looks a bit rickety, but that's solid. It's going nowhere.
It should weather a few storms.
I think
now,
weather a few.
I quite like this rustic weathered look because it suits the whole garden here, but you could actually put on a clear preservative or something, which should, I would imagine, keep this boat going for probably about 20 years or more.
But preserve it in this state, anyway.
In this state,
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll stay
Not
like this.
going to improve it, obviously. The seat's just a bit of 4x2 and it's about half a metre above the ground, which is a very comfortable seat height, which I think we can attest to, sitting here.
That's lovely.
Now, down here, the decking in front, we've recycled a bit more wood here because, again, no point going out and buying new wood when this actually fits in quite nicely with the whole theme. But it is quite rough. There's a lot of splinters on there, so you do need to sand the whole thing down, especially as it doubles up as another seat down at the front here too. But the other great thing about this garden and this seat is that there's only one bit of shade, and it's right here. Very nice. Get off.
Now, our next group of plants are all perennials, and we got some shrubby plants like this Caryopteris cross clandinensis. This one's called Worcester Gold because the leaves in the spring and also sort of early summer are very yellow and golden. As the summer goes on, they go sort of normal green. But it's got these lovely lilac flowers, and you probably recognise this one. This one's Crocosmia and this one's Lucifer. Lucifer because it's such bright red. It's a corm and not a bulb, and it comes up every year, and it's got those very ribbed leaves, but fabulous flowers that just keep coming and keep coming. And then Agapanthus. At home in England, we'd really need to grow that in a protected situation. Again, it likes water during the summer, but it likes to free drain. It doesn't like to be sat in water, and it does much better if it's in a pot or a container. Right, here we go. Which continent is the natural home for the yucca plant? Is it Australia, Africa, or America?
I'm going to have to go for Australia.
No, I'm afraid not. It's America.
No!
I thought you would have remembered from the Agave Americana. Never mind. You sit down, enjoy the sun. I'm going to go and check up what's going on.
Oh.
Now, living by the beach is fantastic, but it's not without problems because the soil in this garden is not soil, it's sand, like that from a builder's merchant. And sand is a very hungry and thirsty soil because all the nutrients get washed straight out. So to improve it, you've got to work in lots of well-rotted organic matter like that, and that will hold nutrients and water in the soil.
If you want to test out your gardening knowledge, go onto the Invaders website at the BBC. There's lots and lots of horticultural questions, and you could even win some gardening treats and some of the tools we use on the show. Well, there's a vast improvement there, Andy.
Coming on, isn't it?
It is. Are you leaving that there?
Well, no, you see, the reason for this...
You've been sat on it all the time,
I've been
and
sat on it
nobody's
and
had a chance.
they've not been able to get to it. No, what it is because I want to keep a bit of this wildflower action going on in the middle of the garden. Yeah. And if we'd moved the table, that would be trashed by now.
Oh, so it's only protecting, but it's not going to be there.
Exactly. So at the end, we just shift that away and then...
It's all happening.
It's coming on well,
So we've
isn't
got
it?
groins going?
Yeah, groins are coming up together nicely. And we sort of contoured all this ground as well.
The boat's been rejuvenated.
Exactly. Look at that. It's all nice and in the shade as well because it's a fantastic hot day today.
Sandra, it must be fantastic to actually get on and tidy this front garden up. So what have you been doing?
Raking, digging, generally tidying, weeding,
throwing
yes.
all his junk in the skip.
Yes, while he wasn't looking. I won't tell him.
I won't tell him. Don't work too hard, will you, Andy? If you want to go and sit down and protect that little square patch of wildlife.
I think you're right. I think because I need a bit of a rest.
Nag him as well. The garden's looking tidier, but then that wouldn't be difficult, Ralph, would it?
Well, no, you said it. I have to agree with you.
What's it like living on Guernsey? I've always wondered.
Superb, superb. I was away in England teaching for 14 years and I just longed to come back. I used to come back on school holidays and so on, but just felt a little bit homesick. And I mean, who could get better than this?
So this is the last question. And there's some really nice grasses to win.
I've had my eye on those.
We've got Miscanthus sinensis, which is grown because it has really arching seed heads that are sort of brown and tufty in the late summer, early autumn, and they hold on to them all through the summer and the winter time. So they're very, very pretty. We've also got Festuca glauca, which is a low, tufty bluegrass, and you see it quite a lot planted through pebbles because the contrast is absolutely fantastic. And then we've got Pennisetum, which is really grown again for its seed heads. It's got these big, fluffy, like giant caterpillar seed heads that arch over. Now, do you recognise this?
Well, sort of.
Well, it's the very famous Guernsey lily, which you can see in bloom all over the island in October. Now, its botanical name is Nerine sarniensis. Does the name come from the Roman for Guernsey, part of South Africa where the bulb actually grows, or the name of the person who discovered the plant in the wild?
Our national anthem, if it's a national anthem, is Sarnia Cherie. And Sarnia is the Roman name for Guernsey. So it comes from the old Roman name for Guernsey.
You're a font of knowledge, aren't you, Ralph?
Oh,
Well
wacko!
done. Well done. But you're not finished. I've got a project down there.
Oh,
Hopefully it'll keep
no.
you quiet.
For the threshold to the garden, we've laid these concrete slabs. Now, they are probably the cheapest concrete slab that money can buy, but to make them look a bit more expensive, we've recycled some of these granite sets from the garden, put them down to the edge, and the whole thing ties in really well. Now, granite's pretty important in this part of the world because the Channel Islands has always produced a lot of it, and you can see over there's an enormous lump of it in next door's garden. So we're going to have a bit of our own granite pile as well. Basically, we've made these cairns out of these pre-drilled boulders. They've come straight from the quarry here in Guernsey, and then down through the hole we've banged these steel rods straight through there, down into the ground, and that is not going to go anywhere. Now over here, Dave is putting the finishing touches to the groins. Now groins are those things you get on the beach that stop the sand and the stones from slipping sideways and the beach actually eroding. Now, Dave's slacking behind earlier, but you've actually caught up now.
Caught up now, we're doing well.
Nicely.
We're doing well. This is reclaimed timber, isn't it? All
Yeah,
the
we
stuff
found that in the garden.
You saw lying around. I thought it was rubbish. Once again, you were right. I was wrong.
It cost a fortune if you wanted to buy that. Now, we've also used some new timber as well, haven't we?
That's the old stuff, and that's the new oak sleepers. And as ever, you wanted me to put the dirty, gnarly one right on top, which goes all against all my building principles, you know?
Well, we're going for this rustic thing, so I quite like the way that these come up a bit shabby sometimes, these oak sleepers.
I've got a confession.
What have you done?
I've been naughty. I used the spirit level, even though you told me not to.
It's meant to be rustic. Do it by eye. Come on.
It's rustic and level, man.
Builders, you're all the same.
Right then, Ralph.
Charlie.
I know this looks like a picnic tablecloth,
Yes.
but it's actually a flag, and you're going to turn it into an amazing bit of artwork.
Oh, wonderful. Just up my street.
Right, well, we want you to put Garden Invaders on that.
Yes.
So, high days and holidays, you can put it up your flagpole.
Yep.
All right.
I'm up for that. And all this paraphernalia here looks just like school days.
So you'll remember it well.
Ah, here you are. I've been looking for you for hours. Well, 5 minutes anyway. Oi,
I can't hear you.
I've got a job for you.
Oh, joy.
Yeah, well, look, we need a water feature, and we've got one of these back in the garden, a big hole drilled through it.
As long as I've not got to lift it into position.
No, we've got some people that can do that kind of thing.
Fantastic. So can I come back here and sit in the sun as soon as I
No,
finish?
come and do some work, for goodness sake. Get down.
You're just such an egg.
I'll buy you an ice cream. So there's our wildflower patch in the heart of the garden. That's all survived. But we've now started planting a lot more of the new plants in the garden. Obviously, being by the sea has a lot of challenges because you're going to get a lot of salt-laden winds. That's the biggest problem. So it tends to keep a lot of shrubs quite small, but it also dries plants out. That's the big problem. So you need to choose plants that have adapted to these conditions. And they do that in a number of different ways. One way is to have succulent leaves like this agave. And by having thick succulent leaves, they hardly lose any water through them. They trap the moisture within the leaf itself, and that protects them. Over here, this Festuca glauca has a very thin leaf. So by having a very small leaf surface, again, it can't lose much water through those leaves. And also, silvery and blue plants like these reflect the heat and the light, so cut down water loss like that as well. And also, because those salt-laden winds are worse in the winter, it's good to plant grasses like this miscanthus because they die down in the winter, so they're hibernating beneath the ground when the winds are at their worst. And with all of that, it helps the plants survive. And then finally, on top of all of this, we're putting down this weed mat on here that keeps the weeds down, and the gravel itself, good couple of inches of gravel on top of that, that will keep the moisture within the ground and again cut down water loss. So all these plants should survive pretty well.
Look at that.
Are you talking
Charlie,
to yourself?
look at that.
That's pretty good, mate.
I'm quite pleased with myself.
Oh, I'd give you an A grade for that, I would.
For my needlework
Yeah.
or for my spelling?
Well, the spelling's not bad
It's
either.
not bad. No, I had atrocious on my report at school.
What, see me?
See me.
I think we ought to
See
go
me
and
after school.
see Sandra.
Yep.
But then that's you finished, so you can pop inside and have a cup of tea. Well, after a bit of fiddling, I've got the water flow just right. So it's not squirting too much and it's just gently trickling over the rock. And then it's a case of letting it run for a good hour to make sure you're not losing any of the water. Sandra, the finishing touches here. We've got a beautiful armillary sphere. Very sort of clubhouse yachty, don't you think?
Certainly is, yes.
And blue and white chairs. Garden Invaders deck chairs. What more could you want? All you got to do is get the question right.
Yes.
And Ralph's quite keen on these
I'm
things.
sure he is, yes.
Right then, here we go. Which protective garden structure has a name which means bell in French? Is it crèche, cloche, or bell jar?
No, I think it's cloche.
Fantastic! You're going to be in his good books there, my dear.
Goodness.
That's all right. See, you didn't get all these questions right. You got 100%.
Oh, well, there
you
you
only
go.
got 75.
Yes.
Now that's you finished now. We've just got to do the finishing touches to the garden.
Yes,
So
good.
pop in the house, but no talking to him.
No, right.
Stum. Off you go then. I'll just sit here for a bit longer.
This is Hebe Blue Gem, which curiously has a purple flower. It's a medium-sized shrub, it's evergreen, and it's a really good plant for a sunny spot in well-drained soil. But it's a must-have plant for any seaside garden. This is Pennisetum. It's an ornamental grass and you won't really notice it in your borders for most of the year, but in the late summer and early autumn it sends out these fountains of flowers that look a bit like squirrel tails. It'll do quite well on a thin soil and it's another plant that's perfect for the seaside. Now I'm glad that Sandra's won this fancy sundial. Just need to set it now. It's just after 6. There you go, see the shadow on there, and we're nearly finished.
Now, your garden this morning, remind me what it was like. What you thought of it and what all your neighbours thought of it.
I know it very well, Charlie. It was full of rubbish, totally unmanaged, and just looking in a very sorry state.
Open your eyes.
The sun's... Oh, that's fantastic!
So-
That's absolutely incredible.
It is a bit different,
God, dear, oh dear, oh dear. God, lummy! Did you?
Your boat's
Did
still there.
you?
What does ditcher mean again?
Oh, c'est fantastique, magnifique! God damn it! That's Guernsey French patois for, boy Jove, I think it's absolutely spiffing!
So we put your old boat up there,
Wow.
sunk that into the ground.
Yep,
Even
And
put a
it-
wine rack underneath.
and it hasn't
Oh,
fallen
look at that.
apart.
No?
Look at that,
quite.
that's superb.
We've reused all your old bits of wood for decking in front of it as well,
Unbelievable.
and all these
Yep.
groins as
Yep.
well.
And I've been lacing on the beach all day.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know, your flat's pretty good.
Isn't that? What a wonderful job I did there.
Sandra's worked really hard.
Come on, show me what you've done.
Harder.
She's
No,
been
I've
raking
weeded,
and
I've
digging.
raked, and I've really worked hard.
And the water feature, look at
Yeah,
that.
that's
Superb.
Charlie for you.
Absolutely.
But you will need to top it up because you're so exposed. The evaporation's going to be quite
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
So
I'll keep an eye on that.
And all this planting, this will all establish quite quickly as well. And we've got all things here that are going to do really well by the seas.
It's superb. Gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked.
you're going to shut up now.
Yeah.
Bye then.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
So do you think they're going to keep that flag then?
Well, let's face it, it's much nicer than that Guernsey flag, isn't it? Don't tell anyone I said that.
You're pushing your luck, sunshine. Fantastic garden.
Yeah, quite pleased with that.
Oh yeah, it's right up my street. I wouldn't mind one
Right
of
up
those.
mine as well, yeah.
Are you quite
I'd do with
reasonably
that.
priced?
No.
They're going to beat us down to the beach.
Come on then.